shows lean left, some lean right, but we lean local and business. This is North Georgia Business Radio X with Phil Bonelli. For the next hour, we will celebrate the businesses in our area and the people that run them. Find us on Facebook at North Georgia Business Radio X and online at northgeorgiabusinessradiox.com. Now, here's Phil Bonelli.
For those about to rock, we salute you. Here, my guest on the show today is none other than Mr. Jody Jackson, Executive Director of the Jarrard Burch Foundation. If you've been around a while, you may remember the John Jarrard Foundation. This is the continuum of that with an extra great added element in the Burch, which we'll talk about. And Jody, along with being the Executive Director for the Jarrard Burch Foundation, is a music industry vet. So we're going to hear from a different sort of industry star than we normally get to hear from. Jody, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Phil. It's great to be here. I've been up here at the station several times, but not to see the wonderful Phil Bonelli.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you, sir.
But thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking to you about what all we've got going on.
So I'd like to repeat something throughout the show so no one misses it, and that is the Jarrard Burch Foundation is putting on its signature Lake Show event coming up soon. Tell us the details on that.
Well, it's our 8th annual Lake Show. Bruce and I named it 8 years ago, and we tried to come up with something to do, somewhere to do a show, and found the most perfect venue, which is the Lake Lanier Olympic Park. Of course, for those of you who have not been out there, it's absolutely beautiful. In 1996, they used it for the Olympics, for rowing. I was in Nashville during those times, but when I moved here 8 or 9 years ago, I think Bruce and Alan Nivens and myself met with Jim Mathis, because Jim was somehow overlooking the Lake Lanier Olympic Park, but the weeds had grown up, and we went out there, and I'm like, man, this is the most beautiful place for a concert. Mm-hmm. You got parking, you got a lake, boats, bathrooms, electricity. I mean, this is perfect. And I'd done some shows in Nashville downtown where they do them on the river, and some shows in Chattanooga and some Augusta. There's other places that, downtown or wherever they do their shows on the lake. It just lends itself. So this was the perfect place. And so I think Morgan was the director out there at that time. Now there's another Morgan who's out there, female Morgan. But anyway, we had the first show and it went great. So we decided, instead of just our songwriter show every September that we've been doing for, now will be 22 years this September, we would add a spring show, which is kind of more of a outdoor fun, dance, lake, kick
Bring
off
your
the
dancing
summer.
shoes, folks.
Bring
them.
Kids, boats, bring it all. It's not that kid-friendly, but it's definitely not anti-kid.
If you don't mind your kids staying up late, then you could bring it. I definitely have seen kids here.
There you go.
So who is the musical entertainment this year?
Oh, man, it's one of my favorite artists. I've worked with this guy. I met him on the Delbert McClinton cruise 15 years ago, I'd say. His name is Jeffrey Steele, and Jeffrey is from California. He moved to Nashville probably 25 years ago. He was in a band called Boy Howdy. I think they were on Mercury Records. They had one hit that was a good song, and then they were dropped from the label. Well, Jeffrey went on, as so many other artists have done, to write songs. And to this date, he is in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Wow.
He's had somewhere between 17 and 20 number one songs from a lot of those Rascal Flatts hits, Montgomery Gentry hits, Tim McGraw hits, Zach Brown, Knee Deep in the Water. You're going to get me singing today.
Yeah, do
Phil,
it.
I'm not even a singer.
Do it.
And so Jeffrey is a one-man show. He's unbelievably good. He plays guitar and piano, not at the same time. But he's so cool because he'll break out his guitar and do, a huge, long Montgomery Gentry hit, like, This Is My Town. And then he'll just kind of segue into like AC/DC or Led Zeppelin down, and start playing that and get everybody, and then goes back to his hit song. And he's just full of energy. He's just a wonderful guy. Like I said, I've worked with him. I've just booked him recently for a corporate event. But he's just great to work with. And when he said he could do the Lake Show, we were just blown away.
And I will caveat, this show is not for everybody. I mean, if you don't like amazing music, If you don't like great food and cold drinks, and if you don't like a beautiful atmosphere, this show's just not for you. If you don't like having
fun people,
I want to warn you.
Fellowship on the lake.
On the lake, baby. And what is the date of the event?
It's Saturday, June the 3rd, which we decided the first or second year. We were looking at Memorial Day weekend, and then we realized, there's a lot of graduations. A lot of people go out of town. So we would do it the Saturday after Memorial Day, and we've done that every year and hope to continue to do it every year. So it's Saturday, June 3rd. Now, that same day, in the morning, they're having a triathlon out there. 400 or 500 athletes swimming and biking and all that stuff. As you can tell, I'm a triathlon athlete. No, I'm kidding.
He's wearing his spandex biking shorts right now, folks. I'm glad you can't see this.
Don't give him that picture, Phil. So, also, in the middle of the day, out there, same venue, they're having a wakeboard competition. Water Sports Central, who is they're our fireworks sponsor for our show. So they're having a competition of 30 or 40 guys behind boats, riding the wakes, whatever they do. That'll wind up around 4:30, and then we'll get all fixed up. We'll have the Porta-Johns cleaned out, have everything ready, the stage, and we'll open the gates at 6 o'clock.
Right.
And I've got a band called the Atlanta Soul Band. I just met about a month ago.
Ooh.
And where they were playing, it was in Canton, Georgia, and everybody was going. They were playing Motown. They were playing just soul music. Everybody was dancing. I thought, these guys are great.
Yeah.
So I went up and talked to them, and they said, yeah, we'd love to do something with you. So as it turns out, we're going to have the Atlanta Soul Band out there, and they'll have everybody dancing. And now the way we're trying to work this is have them kind of kick off the show with a 30 or 45-minute set. We'll take a break, and then we'll bring Jeffrey Steele up. He'll do a good 75 to 90 minutes, and then I think we may get the Atlanta Soul Band back out, and then we do our fireworks show around 10 or 10:15 and call it a night.
You will see this radio host dancing. That is for sure. So, folks can just get tickets?
You can just get tickets. The easiest way, and we've learned this 20 years of doing this, and we're not concert promoters. We're trying to raise money for different charities here in Gainesville, Hall County. But it's to go to our website, and you click right on. You can get individual tickets. They're $30. You can bring your own chair, but it's a built-in amphitheater. There's plenty of places to sit outside the tables. You can get a $600 table for 6 people that includes your food and beverage tickets, adult beverage tickets, we'll say. And or there's still some sponsorships left where you can go on and sponsor your company, and we can put you a banner up and talk about you from the stage and really show how you support the event.
If you're trying to grow your company, imagine this. Your sales team or you yourself personally call on a prospect, and when they hear the name of your company, they, for some reason they don't know, can't help thinking about dancing to wonderful music with an adult beverage in their hand. That's going to help you land some sales. So what is the website, Jody, that they go to? It's
JarrardBurchFoundation.com.
JarrardBurchFoundation.com.
Jarrard is Jarrard. Most people in Gainesville are familiar with the Jarrard family. They're a very, very big deal here in town. And then Bruce Burch, of course, we'll talk about in a minute. We've renamed the foundation to add Bruce's name since he passed away last March. So it's JarrardBurchFoundation.com. You click on events, it'll say Lake Show, and then you see your different options of what you want to do.
And I would advise get a sponsorship so you can get that table, or just if you just got some friends, get a table. It is wonderful to have that, to recline at. Get those food and beverages. You will not regret it. That is the best $600 you can spend in town. That's $100 per person. You can't beat that. And we jumped ahead because I wanted to just about this event. But when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about John Jarrard and Bruce Burch and these really pillars of the music industry that have done a lot of great stuff and that I think have a wonderful story. So join us after this break on North Georgia Business Radio X. Who's That Man? Welcome back to North Georgia Business Radio X. I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, here with Jody Jackson, Executive Director of the Jarrard Burch Foundation. And we're going to talk about who is that man, being John Jarrard. Very interesting individual. Jody, share with the audience, for those of you who don't know, John's story.
It's a great story. John, obviously from Gainesville, Georgia, went to elementary, middle school, high school right here in Gainesville. Then he moved to Athens. But he grew up with type 1 diabetes his whole life, so he struggled with it. I think later in life, around the time in Athens or when he moved to Nashville, he lost his eyesight. But started writing songs and just doing everything he could to learn how to write songs and who to write with and all that kind of stuff. Well, it turns out that Don Williams cut one of John's songs, and it went on to be a hit. And so after that, over the next 15 to 20 years, John had 11 number one songs with Alabama, with George Strait, Reba McEntire. I mean, you name it. John Jarrard had a hit with him, Tracy Lawrence. And he was just kind of an icon around Music Row. And I moved to Nashville in 94. And I would see John. I met him through Bruce and some other friends. And just walking up and down Music Row. And he'd always have a University of Georgia football jersey on and have his cane. He'd lost, I say he went blind. He was like 98% blind. He could barely see some light and feel around. But just a good guy, just a great attitude. Everybody, all the songwriters that just loved John. I mean, he was so much fun and just a jokester and all that kind of stuff. So Bruce and John wrote a lot together. Of course, they were best friends in high school and at University of Georgia. And then Bruce had moved to Nashville and he had 2 Reba number ones and then a couple other hits. And so it was just a neat thing. And then as John kind of got a little more ill in the late 90s, right before 2000, they had done a couple things down here in Gainesville that John came down to. And then the year that John passed away.
Some benefit things?
Yeah.
To raise money for charity.
Right. And I think then, this was not 15, this was 9 years before my time, although I knew John before I came here. But after John passed away, they still did some things in Nashville. But Bruce Burch came back and Philip Wilhite, Senior, and Mike Banks and Jim Mathis and people like that are just, cornerstone or icons in this town, told Bruce, they're like, we would like to continue doing this concert, call it the John Jarrard concert. And so they named it Bruce Burch and Friends then. And so Bruce, knowing all these songwriters, huge songwriters in Nashville, they were coming to town. And the first year it was 30 tables, then it was 35, then it was 40. And it just kept growing. And so at the time, I was managing T. Graham Brown, who's another artist from Athens that Bruce connected me with when I was in Nashville. And back up just a little bit, I met Bruce. I was in country radio in Atlanta. That's where I knew some of the folks that work here now or have in the last few years. And I met Bruce then right after he'd had hits. So when I moved to Nashville, we maintained friends. So anyway, Bruce called me one day in it was 2008 and said, this John Jarrard Foundation thing is really taking off. They've become a nonprofit. We're doing a concert every year, raising over $100,000, we brought guys from Alabama. We brought, huge songwriters down.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody had, this songwriter thing's huge now. There's songwriter festivals everywhere there's just, I can name 30 of them right now, but nothing was going on like this in one community, and it just grew and grew and grew. So at the time, my parents were both in Atlanta. My mother had recently gotten Alzheimer's, so I kind of wanted to move back. My kids were young enough to move back here. So I came back in 2009, and they hired me as the director to kind of put these shows together. And I knew songwriters, I knew production, stage, sound and lights, knew people in Gainesville, knew people in the radio in Atlanta. So started doing it then and just had a lot of help, and it just grew and grew and grew to these last few years before Bruce passed away, we were selling out at 110, 120 tables. And we're bringing the same songwriters that you would go see at the Bluebird in Nashville here. Hit song after hit song. And it's just amazing that people, it's kind of turned into a fall thing to do in Gainesville, Georgia.
The fall thing to do.
And we tried to schedule it not around Georgia football or Gainesville High or any of the high schools here. And so it's been an off Saturday for Georgia. We've tried to every year. And it's just grown and grown and grown. And so We're trying to get John in the Georgia Music Hall of Fame, which we did in 2012, I think, 12 or 13. So we, had accomplished a lot of things we're trying to do. We've been given to the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Good News Clinics, the Good News Shelter, several charities, CSU here, the Food Bank here.
So the money raised from this world-class concert goes to causes that John was passionate about.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that, because it was something that I know John wanted and Bruce wanted, and in the Boys and Girls Clubs especially. He was a big guy out there and just growing up around it. So anyway, in the 20 years, we're at like 2.3 or $2.4 million that we've grossed and given away to all these charities. So it's just, and I talk to songwriters now in Nashville all the time, and they're like, man, we do these things all over, but nobody has it going on like Gainesville, Georgia. And because of our board, folks like Phil Bonelli here, really donate their time, and we have it down from who needs to do everything from setup to trash to tables to chairs to
it's a well-oiled machine.
Johnny's Barbecue has always been with us. The last couple of years we've used some food trucks for the lake show, but different things. And so we just had people that have, like this radio station here has been, WDUN has been so helpful. Bill is just wonderful, and everybody here. So anyway, it's just grown and grown. So in 2022, in March, Bruce, his whole life, has been dealing with leukemia. Oh. And it was a non-Hodgkin's, it's a leukemia that lasted 25 to 30 years. He'd go through chemo every several years, but, he mostly stayed in remission. Anyway, his immune system just, he even got the pandemic and COVID, that's the word. But, he survived it, and he was okay for several months there, but his immune system was just shot. He was going in and out of the hospital. So in March last year, Bruce passed away, and immediately, we had folks, on our board, Alan Nivens and Mac Vinton and Philip Wilhite, people just saying, Bruce has done more than anybody for John, for this community, for this foundation. So it's only fitting to call it the Jarrard Burch Foundation. I was blown away by I thought, absolutely. Bruce is the reason I'm here. I can name 25 people in Nashville that are made a big impact on my life that I met through Bruce. So we changed the name to the Jarrard Burch Foundation, and we're rolling with it, and we love it. And Bruce's family's been very involved. His sister Cindy Haynes is still here, and Mike, his brother-in-law, and then his brother Dave Birch is down at St. Simon's, and they're all big supporters. And so it's just kind of cool to have Bruce and John's name on the same. Oh yeah, the same name, and we're going to continue to what Bruce and I used to say is bring good music to the people.
Amen, and it does. And I'll tell you, this is an event. I definitely. I plan like things in the fall around the Jarrard Burch Foundation concert. It is, if you've never been, you need to go. We mentioned the Lake Show. Go sign up for that. We've been the fall show too. Check it out.
It's September 9th.
September 9th.
And as soon as we get done with the Lake Show, the next week we'll have all information going up on the website to get tickets for the September show.
I am on the board and proud to be and love being on there. My wife, I had told her, like, honey, I'm rolling off some boards. There's no way I'm joining anything again until our kids grow up, a long time from now. And when somebody called me and asked me to be on the Jarrard Burch board, I didn't even think about it. I said, oh my gosh, heck yeah, I want to be. And just a little lesson from the board for folks out there. If you're in any sort of group, like a nonprofit or at your company, I would tell you two things that are key. Everyone on the board does work. There's not really any free riders, and I hate it when people ask you to be in some group and say, you won't really have to do anything. Why would you want them on the board? Two, the decision-making, we just get together and get things done. Nothing great has ever happened from Robert's Rules of Order. You just get around and make it happen. So we'll talk more about this great event after the break on North Georgia Business Radio X. We need more cowbell. More cowbell. Welcome back to North Georgia Business Radio X. I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, here with Jody Jackson, Executive Director of the Jarrard Burch Foundation, and a music industry vet. And tell you the truth, folks, right in front of me is a red-black cowbell, two of my favorite colors, and that makes me think of the music industry, which you have spent many decades working in, Jody. So people know you as an executive director, your great Jarrard Burch work, but tell us about your Nashville path. How'd you end up in the music business? Where'd you start?
You know, I tell you, it's kind of like all of us when you're going through middle school and high school trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. It's usually what your parents or your father or your brother or somebody you know. And it just so happened that I'm the youngest of five, and my oldest brother, he got out of high school and needed a job quick. He was getting married, in fact, and he got on with MCA Records down off Fulton Industrial in the warehouse, and they immediately moved him up within 6 months to promotion. So at 19 years old, he was doing Southeast promotion for MCA Records, which happened to have Leonard Skinner just coming out then.
Wow.
So, their first record. Or around then. So anyway, he did it for years. So when I was, and he's 13 years older than me. So when I was in elementary, middle school, I'm going backstage to all these concerts, to big concerts. I had no clue what was going on. So then fast forward a few more years, my older sister married a guy from Phoenix, Arizona, who was a radio consultant, and his group coined the phrase AOR, album-oriented rock. And so that's what 96 Rock was, a station that played hits, but they also played album cuts.
Okay.
So again, I was going around with them. You know, I mean, I met like ELO and met Van Halen and met all these bands that I hardly knew who they were because I was just under the age of knowing, you know. So here I was at West Georgia College. I went there to play football, and my football career lasted 3 weeks in the summer. No, I saw the writing on the wall. But anyway, my friends were there, and I loved Carrollton and West Georgia, and we were having a great time. So they had a radio station there at West Georgia. Look, you know, the room looked about like this. So I started doing little shifts there and doing stuff for the radio station. My brother got me on at 96 Rock as an intern.
Wow.
And then they were going to give me a job. This is when I was graduating from West Georgia. And then something came up. I can't remember. They hired somebody that was already working there. And I ran into a girl by the name of Kim O'Shields, who I went to college with. And she was working at Y106 with Rhubarb Jones. And B.J. Williams was on the radio from here back then. And Red Neckerson. And anyway, she said, we need a promotion assistant. So I'm like, shoot, I'll come do that. So I did, you know, took a small job out of college, promotion assistant. That basically means you're going around giving away T-shirts and hats and setting up banners and stuff like that. So I did that for a couple of years, or actually for about a year, and then she, I believe, got married, and then got pregnant, so she left, and they interviewed several people, and then the general manager brought me and said, we hadn't found anybody that's going to promote, like, you know, so they made me a promotion director at 24 years old.
Wow. At
the biggest country station in Atlanta. So it was a really big deal for me. I loved it. Did that from 89 to 93. And then I moved to Nashville because I'd met so many people, Bruce Burch being the main one. Moved to Nashville and did record promotion. My brother and I, he moved from L.A. at the time because he had already moved from MCA, several other companies, to RCA. And then he had teenage girls, didn't want to raise them in L.A., so they moved to Nashville with RCA Records. He left RCA. We started an independent promotion company doing country dance music. And this is right when Boot Scoot Boogie and Achy Breaky Heart and all the country dance songs. So we were promoting all the record labels' country dance songs to over 400 country nightclubs. Wow. And we're sending them the music, sending them posters, stand-ups of all these artists. I mean, it was a big deal, and it really went well. We started just he and I, then we had like 12 employees doing this within about 2 years. Well, then I ran into Bruce one day, and that's when he said, you know, you ought to – oh, I'm sorry. We had done some road stuff with John Berry, who from down here, Travis Tritt from Atlanta, just because I knew them. And then Shania Twain, we did a big thing with Mercury Records that Shania Twain and Toby Keith were both brand new artists with no hits on there. So we took them around doing track dates, doing radio interviews, Toby and Shania, which I thought I would probably go to work full-time with Shania, and then she moved to L.A. Like she just up and moved to California, so that ended that. So we did promotions, I'd say for 3 to 4 years that I was working with him. And then I ran to Bruce, and he said, you know T. Graham Brown? I said, yeah, I know T. I mean, I don't know him well, but he's from Georgia, and he's a great singer. He said, well, T's brother's been on the road with him, but now his wife's having babies, and he wants to stay home. They just need somebody to go out, on the road. And I thought, I looked at his schedule, and he's like playing with, George Jones and Merle Haggard and all these huge acts that he was opening up for all over the country. I thought, you know what? I just got married, and I thought, I'll do this for maybe a year or two. Well, 12 years later, I got off the bus. That's what they say. But through all that, I met so many artists and just travel and just all the big country. I met or we did shows with every country icon that I can think of. Merle Haggard, George Jones, Chris Christopherson. The only one is Johnny Cash. I never met Johnny Cash. I met June. She was at an event we did, but anyway, I never met Johnny. Had an opportunity to. He passed away. Where was I in the story? So, with T. Graham all those years. And then in 2008 is when Bruce called me and said, they're doing the John Jarrard Foundation down here in Gainesville, and I thought, you know what, I'd love to get off the road. I'm coaching my son's basketball and baseball. He was 7 or 8 years old, and so we moved back. And since I've moved back, now this has been going on now for 2009 to now, what's that, 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
When I say I hire the stage, sound, and lights and the artists, and some travel and some for several other events in Georgia. The biggest one is right here in Gainesville, is the Georgia Poultry Federation.
Oh, right.
The Night of Nights have done for 40 years now. We've moved it to Lake Lanier Islands, and so this is my 3rd year doing that, and it's every October. This year we have Dustin Lynch. Last year we had Lee Bryce, some really big acts, and raising money for all the poultry folks. Mike Giles and Abbott Massey are 2 of the greatest guys around. I do the Georgia Alliance of Community Hospitals. I do their event every year. It's smaller, but it's still a big event, and it's down at Lake Oconee. I do Mansfield Energy, Mansfield Oil here. This is my 7th year of doing their event. It's a big golf tournament for MDA.
Oh, yeah. I've heard a great concert at that.
Yeah, the last few years we've had ELO, or parts of ELO, I should say. Little River Band. We've had Mickey Thomas and Starship. Some great acts. This year we have this June, in fact, coming up. I got to think of his name, DiCarlo, this lead singer of Boston for the last 10 or 12 years. So it'll be fun. So I love doing events. So anybody out there, I've done them as small as a $500 budget to a $125,000 budget. If you want to bring music to your people, your customers, or your employees, I can make it happen.
Call them up, Jody Jackson. And I'll tell you, I've been to a large number of Jody Jackson events, and they're always amazing, to say the least. And it is so neat to see, you go to everyone's, I'm sure, been to a concert, been to some charity event with music, perhaps, and you just see it. And you see it go down, and your eyes are drawn to the stage and the performer, but everything that goes into that, the tractor trailers of sound equipment that went in, all the sound checks, all the everything, making sure it's just right. It's a big deal to have a wonderful event, but it leaves an impact. It's worth it.
Absolutely. A lot goes into it. And like I say, I enjoy it. You can burn out, but you look at like Taylor Swift tours right now and this Morgan Wallen, they're bringing 50 18-wheel truck.
18-wheel trucks.
To unload. Now, I haven't done tours that big, but it's just great. Music is the language of everybody. And, a buddy of mine used to go to ball games and say, half the people leave every ball game are pretty upset that their team lost, but hardly anybody leaves a concert unhappy.
Nobody. I tell you, I went to a wedding a couple weeks ago for my lovely sister-in-law, Erin. Now, Erin Montenegro just married Danny Montenegro, and they had a mariachi band at their wedding.
Oh, man.
And I was kind of worn out. It was the afternoon. I was excited about their wedding, but when that mariachi band hit, it was game on for the Bonelli family. We'll be back after this break on North Georgia Business Radio X. I'm telling you. The winds of change are a-blowing. Welcome back to North Georgia Business RadioX. I'm your host, Phil Bonelli. Here with, we get some more cowbell. Here with Jody Jackson, Executive Director of the Jarrard Burch Foundation. And if you're just joining us, go on to JarrardBurchFoundation.com and get some tickets to the Lake Show that's coming up here soon. Tied for the best concert you're ever going to see, tied with the Fall Show from the Jarrard Burch Foundation. Some amazing songwriter talent, and get you a table. But I want to talk to Jody, who's a longtime music industry vet, about the music industry and how's it changed. In your career, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen?
Oh, you have no idea. Right in the years from when I moved from Atlanta, working in at radio, which was, 89, 90, 91, 92, when I first got to Nashville's always been based on having a record deal. Distribution is the most important thing, and promotion, radio, record, promotion. So for you to, as an artist, to have a deal that, one, they liked you to be young and good looking and all that with a good song, but you would sign with a label because, at first it was albums, then it went to cassettes, 8 tracks, then cassettes, and then CDs was a big thing. When that hit in early 90s or whenever it did, we all thought, well, this is going to be here forever. Well, you had to have distribution. So, these record labels had trucks and warehouses and hundreds, if not thousands, of employees pushing music to record stores. And that was the biggest part of the music industry is once you're promoted, you're selling records. Well, when everything started going digital, can you imagine when things go digital, that lays off trucks, warehouses, people's jobs? I mean, huge change. And it was very abrupt to me, even though it's kind of been slow over the years. But I feel like there's the diamond in the rough, or what do you call it? The silver lining is what I'm trying to say, is that artists can be heard that don't have a record deal because of the internet and because of digital. Now, songwriters and artists are somewhat cheated, as you know, and all the controversy on that. They're not paid as much through, all these Spotify and all these, Apple Music and all that. But they're getting the music out there. And there are artists to this day who are selling music on the internet. They're selling their live shows because of the internet and because of Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and all that probably would have never had the opportunity had they had to get a record deal and move to Nashville or New York or L.A. So it's just drastically changed when everything went digital. But what I would tell somebody now who is trying, I don't care if you're in country, rock, pop, urban, rap, whatever, gospel, you need to build a database of fans because they're loyal, especially country fans, but a lot of all formats. And you build that database and they follow you around. So every time you're putting records out, they come see you and they pay tickets for your show and they buy your T-shirts and hats. And there's nothing digital that takes away a live show or a T-shirt or a hat or a good night with friends at a concert. So that's kind of in a nutshell how it changed drastically.
So you're just not really making money off the music as much per se.
Exactly.
But you're using that as a tool.
Right.
Yeah, I tell you what, I don't even like to watch recordings of live shows because it's just not a live show.
I like being there. And a great example right here in North Georgia is Corey Smith. For those of you who don't know who Corey Smith is, he's another one that Bruce helped out early on. Corey was from over in Jefferson area, Jackson County, teaching high school and writing music.
Was he teaching high school?
He was teaching, I think, either English or history. And Bruce told him, he's like, man, you got to get out there and be heard live. So he has some real, I won't use the word quirky, some real, Party Georgia, Go Dogs.
The 21. And when I was at Georgia, that was
a prime
the
song.
That was it.
So he hit a nerve with that group in Athens, Georgia, people who are now 32 to 50, I guess, somewhere in that age, I don't know. But Corey was one of the first that he would go do live shows, and he was printing up CDs in his basement and giving them out at his live shows.
Wow.
He wasn't selling them. He's giving them away. So he built a database. So Bruce and I met with Corey's manager one year about, I'm going to say 4 to 5 years into him doing this, and it's before he signed with Warner Brothers in Nashville. Once they put out singles, he never really had a big hit. But his manager said that they did, the previous year, $1.7 million. That's without a record deal. That's just going out and selling T-shirts. And, so what a great story.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Corey Smith was one of the first to do that.
For everyone out there listening, if you're leading a business, I mean, monumental changes can and will occur, and with every change is opportunity. So how can you grab a hold of it? And you have to let go of your devotion to the past.
Right.
What is, and be open to change. You gotta get after it, because a lot of opportunity come rise. How much is Taylor Swift making off selling
Roll
T-shirts
with the changes.
and hats?
Oh, don't get me started on her. I've had more people in the last month call me wanting Taylor Swift tickets, and I want to say yes to everybody. That's just my personality. But those tickets are ridiculous. I could call Nashville and use one favor and get 2 tickets, yes. But she sold out 3 nights, and I had buddies that took their daughters and girlfriends or wives and said, that's the best concert I've ever seen. Like, she played 3 strong hours, sold out Mercedes-Benz 3 nights. So she's killing it, and more power to her. I mean, she's...
I did not know, Jody, that you were the go-to for hard-to-find tickets.
No.
Maybe we shouldn't have said that on the radio. Hey, if you get a big enough sponsor spot for the Jarrard Burch Lake Show, Jody will get you tickets to whatever concert you want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unofficial. But it is. There's opportunity everywhere. And just look at, you've started in your career on this path. You knew some people, and all these different opportunities you took. Very fun career. What in the last couple of minutes we have, what is a favorite story you have in the industry?
Well, before I answer that question, I'd say I'm very passionate about the songwriter. Obviously, knowing Bruce and John like I did, I'm not a musician or a songwriter, but when I was in Nashville promoting all the artists, I realized that it all begins with a song. You go to the Bluebird and you hear where these songs come from out of their heart. I first, met Alex Harvey, who's played our show here a few times. He just passed away about a year and a half ago. But Alex said, come out and see me at the Bluebird Friday night. And I did. My girlfriend at the time, later my wife, we went. And I forgot who was there, but Alex and 2 other writers that they did like 10 hit songs and just had people in tears about how they wrote and why they wrote these songs. And I was like, it's all about the song. And to this day, it still is. Everything you hear on the radio, it comes from a songwriter.
Right.
So that's the main thing I wanted to tell you about me. Crazy stories. When I was road managing T. Graham, I'd gotten a call from B.J. Thomas's wife, who knew T's wife, and said, we're doing 2 shows in Vegas this weekend, and we don't have a road manager. Our road manager's sick or something. I can't remember. So I said, sure, I'll come out there and do. So I fly on Thursday morning to Vegas. Stay Thursday night. Friday we have shows. Saturday we have show. Did all that. Well, after the Saturday show, BJ said that the Oak Ridge Boys. Now, this is a lot of name dropping. I'm just trying to tell you these 4 days that I had no sleep almost at all. If you imagine being in Vegas, I'm 34 years old, 36 years old, I don't know. So 2 nights in Vegas with BJ Thomas, huge crowds. And then BJ said, look, I want to go see the Oaks and I want to surprise them. Or they were playing, I can't think of all the hotel names, but they were playing a big hotel. So BJ and I got in a cab, went straight backstage. I got BJ, yeah, y'all come in. So we go backstage, and there's the Oaks. They hadn't gone on stage yet, and we're all high-fiving. Well, Wayne Newton comes in because Wayne was playing somewhere else. And so I'm sitting back there, I'm like, okay, I'm here with BJ Thomas and the Oak Ridge Boys and Wayne Newton. It was just a really, really fun night. After that, we went and had some drinks and, really, really cool place. So I get up on Sunday, and BJ lived in Arlington, Dallas, Texas, so he was flying back to Dallas. I flew back. I was supposed to fly back to Atlanta, but T. Graham had called and said that Carl Perkins' festival was on Sunday in, I think it's Jackson, Tennessee. And Carl Perkins, as you know, is one of the greatest songwriter. Guitar player, is just an amazing guy, and he wanted T to come sing. Well, we got off. I flew to Memphis and rented a car, met T. Graham in Memphis, and then we went to the Carl Perkins Festival. And that was when Billy Ray Cyrus was hitting pretty big and having all that fiasco with Travis Tritt. So we get there, and the only bus that's there, because it's this little theater, not with a lot of backstage, was Billy Ray's. And so he's like, y'all come on up, So I sat there all afternoon with T. Graham and Billy Ray Cyrus, and Carl Perkins comes and gets on the bus with us. Anyway, it was just a great, afternoon, evening. The show went great. It was unbelievable, all the people that in the stories of Carl Perkins and all that. And then we stayed at the Peabody that night in Memphis. They put us up there. We get up Monday morning and drove back to Nashville. And I'm like, I don't know if I can explain to somebody what I've done in the last 4 nights from Las Vegas to Memphis.
Folks, if you want to have that much fun, go to JarrardBurchFoundation.com and get your tickets for the Lake Show. Thank you, Jody, for being on North Georgia Business Radio X.
You've been listening to North Georgia Business Radio X with Phil Bonelli. What local business do you know that should be highlighted on our program? Let us know. Just search North Georgia Business Radio X on Facebook or contact Bo at businessradiox.com. See you next time, and remember to support our local businesses.